Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. What a win, man. I'm feeling like we're back now. Defense stepping up. Offense finally got rolling after a slow start. Ravens beat the Chargers 30-23. Really slow start in this game, man. Chargers were up 10-0 early on in the first quarter. They go down on the opening drive, score a touchdown, run game going, wide open crossing routes to McConkey. The middle of the field was definitely vulnerable with Roquan not being there, and you notice the run defense a little bit more vulnerable with him not in as well, but they really settled in. This defense, I think, stepped up in a big way tonight and is definitely headed in the right direction. I think that they finally got this safety play figured out, and I thought the defense played an incredible game outside of the first drive and the last drive, really, with a bunch of defensive pass interferences. But other than that, man, this defense balled out. Great play from Chris Board in pass coverage and in the run game. Malik Harrison in the run game was an absolute animal. I just feel like these linebackers did step up by committee, kind of like what Zach Orr was saying. If Roquan was out, we just got to step up as a team, rally to the ball. And I really just think this defense came to life in this game, especially in the second half. The pass rush started heating up. And we said in the preview episode that the Chargers just don't have a lot of outside threats. I know there was a million Chargers fans. They were super loud in the YouTube comments. I would say outside of the Denver Broncos fans, the Chargers fans were definitely the loudest in these comments pre-game, and kind of played out like we talked about, man. There's no outside threats. Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer just really aren't going to beat our corners, and McConkey got his. I knew he would. The middle of the field was definitely vulnerable for us, and McConkey exposed that. He had a good game. And I thought Herbert played well. He bought some time. He had a couple overthrows, but he played pretty well, used his legs to buy more time and scramble and get some yards. The run game was going early. It does suck that J.K. Dobbins got hurt again, man. This is just the story of his career, but hopefully he rewrites that story. Hopefully this is not serious and he comes back and continues to ball, man. I'm definitely rooting for JK. But this was the Ravens night, man. The third Harbaugh goes to John Harbaugh again. He's 3-0. And this game was really all Ravens after that first quarter. The offense was flat again in the first quarter, had a couple penalties. McCary is still getting holding penalties. But after that first quarter, the Ravens clearly decided to put the ball on the ground, run through this offensive line, through Derrick Henry. Lamar was also super efficient through the air, but Derrick Henry was carrying this team, man. Especially on that first long touchdown drive that we had, Derrick Henry was carrying the rock, man. This is a physical runner. The Chargers have not seen someone this year of that physicality, and shout out to our offensive line for bringing it to a very, very talented defensive line as well. The Chargers D-line and their pass rush are really, really good, man. They got a lot of ballers over there, and they only end up with one sack, and we run for over 200. So our offensive line completely neutralized their defensive line and won the trenches battle. That's a huge story in this game. Lamar gets the first touchdown of the game for us by scrambling in the end zone, kind of matched what Herbert did on the first drive when he scrambled and got his touchdown. And then I thought that drive before half was insane, man. We're going for it on fourth down. By the way, we were 3 for 3 on fourth down conversions in this game. So super aggressively called game by John Harbaugh to decide to go for it. And amazing execution by the players to get those fourth down conversions, man. Going 3 for 3 on fourth down is huge. And that drive right before half, on our own 16-yard line, we're going for it on 4th and 1. We end up running the tush push with Mark Andrews. It worked out, thank God. And then Lamar chucks one to Bateman. He gets an and one in the end zone with the contact. Mark Andrews had an amazing night tonight. In that second half, he had that incredible jump ball touchdown catch. And we just continued rolling in the second half. We used that momentum that our offense started to get in the second quarter and just kind of steamrolled the whole second half. We were scoring, I think, on 4 or 5 straight drives. One of them was a field goal, but we were scoring every time we touched the ball which is what we expect. I know that's an unrealistic thing, but this is one of the best offenses in the league, probably the best offense that the Ravens have ever had. And we've seen that all season long. So when we go play opposing teams and they're like, oh, they're not scoring 30 on this defense. But when the Ravens get going, especially on the ground through Derrick Henry, you know what Lamar Jackson brings to the table. It's just impossible to stop. And we saw an elite offense show up after this first quarter tonight. Derrick Henry is just an absolute beast. Justice Hill was big in the run game with that 51-yard touchdown that pretty much iced the game late in the fourth quarter. That was a huge touchdown run. And we really played complimentary ball in this game, man. The defense was getting stops after the offense was scoring, and we were able to get a couple score lead because of that. We haven't seen that a lot this year, you know. Usually when the offense is scoring drive after drive, the defense can't get a stop, and the other team's matching it, and we're just in this shootout. So it's kind of nice for the defense to finally step up too, and not finally step up. They stepped up last week against Pittsburgh too. So now we got 2 straight weeks where the secondary looks like it is ascending. You know, we've heard all year how we're the worst pass defense in the league, and statistically, 100% right. You know, this was the worst pass defense in the league. But when you look at these players, when you know these players, it is just way too much talent to be like that. So I think we got to figure it out with this back-end safety situation with our Darius Washington and Kyle Hamilton. And we just have a nice corner rotation right now with Tre'Davious White, Brandon Stevens, Nate Wiggins. He had a great game. They were testing him a lot, and he was right there. Still got to get his head around, still got to find the ball a little bit better, and I think he's going to have a lot more interceptions because he is right there consistently, man. It's going to be hard to burn him. He's got speed. He's a sticky cover. Nate Wiggins is going to be a great Raven for years and years. I love what I'm seeing from him. I love what I'm seeing from this secondary and this defense as a whole. As these weeks start to stack, man, we got to keep this rolling. This defense has never looked better, and this was not an easy offense to go against. The Chargers were on a 4-game win streak. Herbert was playing his best ball. They usually run the ball really well. I know Dobbins got hurt, so that definitely probably affected some of that, but the Ravens were settling in anyway with even Dobbins in there. So I just think the Ravens defense showed up, showed out. The offense finally got going, and it was just a complimentary win. Justin Tucker made his kicks. You know, special teams did their thing. I just feel like this was definitely a great, well-rounded team win. Let's dive into these stats. So Lamar Jackson, 16 of 22, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Also had 1 on the ground. He was sacked once, 126.5 quarterback rating. Derrick Henry, 24 carries, big up from last week, 140 rushing yards. He didn't score. I think this is the first game this season that Derrick Henry didn't have a touchdown, but 140 on the ground, averaging 5.8 a carry. Justice Hill, 4 for 55 on the ground, had that huge 51-yard touchdown. Lamar Jackson, 8 for 15 on the ground. He was pretty much held in check running, but he did have that red zone touchdown. Ravens ended up with 212 rushing yards on a really talented Chargers defense with a really strong D-line. So I know Perryman was out, but that's big, man. That's huge that we were able to run all over them. We also had Roquan Smith out, so you know, we feel your pain. And then Zay Flowers led the way through the air, 5 catches, 62 yards. Mark Andrews, 5 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Big touchdown grab in the end zone there. Rashad Bateman, 2 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Huge touchdown grab as well, and 1. And then Tylan Wallace, 1 for 15. Justice Hill, 2 for 7. Deontay Johnson, once again, held without a catch. He is just really not involved in this offense. Neither is Keaton Mitchell, which I am very surprised by. They have some incredible depth if they need to use those guys. And then moving over to the Ravens defense, Malik Harrison, man, 13 total tackles. He was a monster in the run game, playing physical. Nate Wiggins had 6 tackles. He had 2 pass deflections. Tre'Davious White and Marlon Humphrey with some pass deflections. And then we got Van Noy with a sack, Brandon Stevens with a sack, Josh Tupou with a sack, Adafe Owe with a sack. We had 4 sacks tonight. The pass rush was definitely coming alive in the second half. Justin Tucker with the tackle. I forgot about that. Shout out Justin Tucker. And then moving over to the Chargers, Herbert, 21 of 36, 218 passing yards, sacked 4 times, 75.9 quarterback rating. They only had 83 total rushing yards. J.K. Dobbins 6 for 40, but he left the game early. Justin Herbert had 4 for 29 on the ground. Gus Edwards 9 carries for only 11 yards. And then Ladd McConkey led the way for receiving, 6 catches, 83 yards. He's nice, man. There's no doubt. I knew he was going to be a problem. Will Dissly 4 for 47. If you can't tell, the middle of the field is vulnerable. Josh Palmer 3 for 38. Rager with 20 yards. Dobbins had 19. Quentin Johnson 0. I think he had about 4 drops, though. He had 5 targets, no catches, no yards. Not a fan. And no turnovers in this game. I think that's a big thing to point out. Neither team turned the ball over. Pretty clean game. There's some penalties. The Ravens had a lot of pass interference calls down at the end. You know, I guess that stuff can go either way. A couple holding calls again, but I didn't think the penalties were insane. They definitely got to get cleaned up. I think McCary having a penalty almost every single game, a holding call every game is killing us, but he's got to get that under control. We're going to have to figure out a different guard option. But other than that, man, the line balled tonight. Lamar balled tonight, was super efficient, was really good in the red zone. Derrick Henry just dominated on the ground all night, and this defense stepped up in a big way from a pass rush standpoint. Once we had a lead, the rush was really getting home. The secondary was doing their thing, a lot of pass breakups, a lot of guys tested, man. Tre'Davious White was tested. Nate Wiggins was tested. Brandon Stevens was tested. Marlon Humphrey was tested. And if you notice, Stevens is playing less and less. So we're probably going to see a lot more Nate Wiggins and guys like Tre'Davious White. We saw a lot of Jalen Armour-Davis tonight. I just think that they're going to have a nice rotation at corner, and whoever steps up, steps up. We know Marlon Humphrey's always going to be out there, and I would imagine Nate Wiggins' playing time just continues to increase, but it's a healthy rotation right now between Brandon Stevens, Tre'Davious White, Jalen Armour-Davis, and then our Darius Washington and Kyle Hamilton on the back end. But I like this lineup, man, and I feel good about how the linebackers stepped up too. That was a big deal. You know, Roquan being out there, the middle of the field was definitely more vulnerable, but I thought Chris Board and Malik Harrison stepped up in a big way. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to the coaching staff for having them prepared. Outside of that slow start at the beginning of the game, I thought the Ravens played an incredible game tonight in a game that they needed to win. We got the Eagles next week, which is not going to be an easy game at all. That game is going to be insane. But then we get a much-needed bye, and we're ready for the home stretch, man. So huge win tonight. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are about this game, who stood out to you. And shout out to all the people that are watching this late at night. I'm dropping this in the middle of the night. This is my initial post-game reaction. I'm trying to get this video out as quick as possible. I'm sure most of you will probably be watching this tomorrow. But if you are watching it tonight, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in to another episode of The Flock Rundown. Huge win tonight, man. And I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens Flock. The Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The Flock Rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.